Have you ever felt like your life should be working better than this? You have the education, you have the experience, you have the opportunities, you have the skills, you know what you're supposed to do, and yet you feel overwhelmed. You feel mentally exhausted, emotionally drained. You struggle to make decisions. You overthink things that should be simple. You start strong but lose momentum. And no matter how much productivity advice you consume, the problem never fully goes away. Now, here is the question. What if the problem isn't your discipline? What if it isn't your productivity? What if it isn't your time management? What if the real problem is that different parts of your internal world are operating in conflict with one another? Because that's exactly what I've observed in many high capacity individuals. They are not failing because they are incapable. They are struggling because they are internally fragmented. And that's why I developed what I call the internal coherence recalibration model, or ICRM. Today, I'm going to explain exactly what it is, how it works, and why it may be the missing piece behind your overwhelm, decision fatigue, emotional instability, and recurring cycles of frustration. Because once you understand this model, you stop seeing your struggles as random. You start seeing them as signals. Let us dive in. Most personal development approaches focus on behavior. Change your habits, improve your mindset, set better goals, manage your time. And while those things matter, they often focus on symptoms rather than causes. Imagine your car dashboard lights suddenly turning red. You could cover the warning light with tape, but that doesn't solve the engine problem. Many personal development solutions work the same way. They address the visible behavior while ignoring the invisible conflict beneath it. The internal coherence recalibration model starts with a different assumption. People struggle externally because they are fragmented internally. Think about the Avengers. When the team was aligned, they became incredibly effective. But when internal conflict emerged in civil war, performance suffered. The individual capabilities remained the same. What changed was alignment. The same principle applies internally. Your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, your priorities, your values, your identity, they are like different members of an internal team. When they operate together, life feels clear. When they operate against each other, life feels exhausting. That is what the model helps identify and resolve. Before we discuss recalibration, we need to understand coherence. Internal coherence exists when the major dimensions of your internal world are working together rather than competing. Simply put, your values support your priorities. Your priorities support your decisions. Your goals support your identity. And your emotions, processed rather than suppressed. When these elements align, something remarkable happens. When these elements align, something remarkable happens. Decision making becomes easier, stress decreases, clarity increases, energy improves. Not because life became easier, but because internal resistance decreases. Imagine rowing a boat. If everyone rows in the same direction, movement is smooth. But if everyone rows in different directions, effort increases while progress decreases. That is the difference between coherence and incoherence. Most people are trying to solve exhaustion by rowing harder. The model helps them get everyone rowing in the same direction. That is what the model does. Now, the internal coherence recalibration model examines 5 critical dimensions. Number 1, values alignment. What truly matters to you? Many people claim certain values, but live according to different ones. That gap creates tension. For example, someone says family is their highest priority, but work receives all their energy. The inconsistency creates internal friction. Number 2, identity alignment. What do you believe you are? Many high performers are carrying outdated identities. They have grown, but their self-perception hasn't. And when identity lags behind reality, confidence suffers. Number 3, emotional alignment. Are emotions being processed or suppressed? Unprocessed emotions create internal noise, and noise reduces clarity. Number 4, priority alignment. Do your daily actions reflect your actual priorities? Or are you spending your life responding to urgency instead of purpose? Number 5, behavioral alignment. Do your actions reinforce what you genuinely want? Or are your habits pulling you away from your desired future? These 5 dimensions constantly interact. When one becomes misaligned, the others are affected. And over time, overwhelm begins to accumulate. Overwhelm begins to accumulate. Now, let's talk about the second half of the model, recalibration. Why recalibration? Because life naturally creates drift. Think about an airplane. Pilots don't set a course once and forget about it. They make constant adjustments, tiny corrections, continuous recalibration. Without those corrections, the plane eventually misses its destination. The same thing happens internally. Stress creates drift. Success creates drift. Failure creates drift. Relationships create drifts. Responsibilities create drifts. Over time, people become disconnected from themselves without realizing it. That is why recalibration is necessary. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is realignment. The internal coherence recalibration model helps people identify where drift has occurred and systematically restore alignment. Not once, repeatedly, because coherence is not an event. Coherence is not an event. It is a practice. It is a practice. Here is why many high performers find traditional self-help frustrating. Most systems assume the problem is lack of information. But high performers usually have plenty of information. They know what they should do. They do. The challenge is that different internal forces are competing for control. One part wants growth, another wants safety. One part wants achievement, another wants rest. One part seeks significance, another seeks peace. Traditional personal development often tells people to push harder. The internal recalibration The internal coherence recalibration model asks a different question. Why are these parts in conflict? That's a very different approach. Because the goal isn't forcing behavior. The goal is reducing internal resistance. When resistance decreases, performance naturally improves. Not because people become more disciplined, because they become coherent. And coherence is far more sustainable than willpower. Let me leave you with this. Most people spend years trying to optimize their lives. They optimize their productivity, optimize their performance, optimize their habits, they optimize their results. But optimization without coherence often creates faster burnout. Because you are accelerating a system that is already internally conflicted. That is why the internal coherence recalibration model begins somewhere different. It begins with alignment. It begins with understanding. It begins with wholeness. Because the goal isn't simply helping people achieve more. No. The goal is helping people stop fighting themselves. When your values align with your priorities, when your priorities align with your actions, when your actions align with your identity, when your emotions are processed rather than suppressed, something changes. You experience greater clarity, greater emotional stability, better decisions, sustainable performance, and perhaps most importantly, peace. Yes, peace. Not because your life becomes perfect, no, but because your internal world becomes coherent. That is what the internal recalibration model is designed to create. Not a better performing machine, a more integrated human being. If this video helped you understand internal coherence in a new way, comment here below with the word recalibration and tell me, which of the 5 dimensions do you think creates the most friction in your life right now? And if you are ready to move beyond productivity hacks and start building true internal coherence, subscribe to the channel. Because sustainable performance begins when internal conflict ends.